All right, we're jumping right in. We're cracking open an introduction to communication disorders, and we're heading straight for Chapter 7, Disorders of Fluency. We're going to cut through all the confusion and really get into what stuttering is and what it isn't. And hey, right out of the gate, the experts are telling us something really important. This is complicated stuff. Stuttering isn't some simple, figured-out problem. It's this deep, complex thing that has had researchers scratching their heads for years. So, if you've ever found it confusing, you are in very good company. Okay, let's get real. You hear this, and for a split second, you wonder, right? Is that a stutter, or did they just get tripped up on a word? Well, that single question, that's basically the entire ball game for a speech pathologist. We all mess up our words sometimes. The real trick is figuring out where a normal little speech hiccup ends and an actual clinical disorder begins. So, just like in a detective show, the first thing a clinician has to do is rule out the imposters. Before they can even think about diagnosing what we typically call stuttering, they gotta make sure it's not one of these other conditions that just kind of looks and sounds the same. Okay. So on one hand, you've got the real deal, developmental stuttering. This is the one that usually starts when you're a kid. But then you have the lookalikes. You've got psychogenic stuttering, which can literally pop up overnight after some kind of trauma. You've got neurogenic, which can happen after a brain injury, like a stroke. And then there's cluttering, which is a whole other thing, just really, really fast, jumbled up speech. You gotta clear all those off the table first. All right, so once the imposters are out of the picture, we get to the main event. How do you separate a real clinical stutter from the everyday slip-ups that every single one of us has when we talk? This is where the real detective work starts. And this right here is the key. Clinicians basically split these speech screw-ups into two buckets. In one bucket, you have other disfluencies, or ODs. This is the normal stuff, saying or repeating a whole phrase like I want to go. No biggie. But in the other bucket, you have stuttering-like disfluencies, or SLDs, and these are the red flags. We're talking about repeating just part of a word, like ball, or getting completely stuck, what they call blocks and prolongations. That's a whole different animal. I love this way of thinking about it. It's like a thermometer of concern. Down at the bottom, yeah, you've got some simple repetitions. It's something to keep an eye on. But as you move up that gauge, you see things get more serious. The prolongations, the tension, and then at the very top, you get to the fear and the avoidance. The higher you go, the more confident a clinician is that they're dealing with a real fluency disorder. Now here's what's so crucial to understand. This isn't just a vibe. A clinician doesn't just listen and say, yep, sounds like a stutter. No way. To make a real diagnosis, they rely on cold, hard data. It's a numbers game. So how do they get these numbers? Well, it's a pretty clear-cut process. You get a recording of someone talking, at least 300 syllables worth, then you painstakingly count every single syllable that has one of those red flag SLDs we were just talking about. Then you just do some simple math. Divide the number of stuttered syllables by the total and multiply by 100. Boom, you have your percentage. And all that math leads us to a really important number. The research points to this. If a kid has more than 10 disfluencies for every 100 words they say, that's a huge red flag. That's a sign they might be shifting from just being a typically disfluent kid to actually developing a stutter. It's a critical line in the sand. But, and this is a really, really big but, everything we've talked about so far, everything, is just the stuff you can hear and see. It's only the tip of the iceberg. The most damaging, life-altering part of stuttering is completely invisible. This model right here just nails it. On the left side, you've got the abnormal function. That's the stutter itself, the physical act of getting stuck. But then look at the right side, the functional consequences. That's the real story. That's the communication breakdowns, the social anxiety, the absolute psychological havoc it can wreak on a person's life. Seriously, this is what it's all about. The stutter is one thing, but the fear, the frustration, the shame, that feeling of your own body betraying you, that's the stuff that can completely destroy a person's quality of life. The real damage isn't the stutter. It's what happens because of the stutter. And that leads to avoidance. This is where a person's world just starts to shrink. We're not talking about avoiding giving a big speech. We're talking about the million tiny, heartbreaking calculations you make every single day. It's ordering a latte because you're scared you'll stutter on the word cappuccino. It's letting every single phone call go to voicemail. It is your entire life being quietly and constantly controlled by this disorder. So after all this, the numbers, the behaviors, digging into all the hidden feelings, the clinician finally makes a diagnosis. And the very next question is this going to stick around? Or is there a chance it'll just go away on its own? Well, the research gives us some pretty solid clues about who's at higher risk for it persisting. The risk is higher for boys. It's higher if stuttering runs in your family. Time is a huge factor. If it's been going on for over 3 years, the odds of it disappearing on its own go way down. And pretty obviously, if it's getting worse instead of better, that's not a great sign. So we end here with this question. We can count stutters, we can measure them, we can chart their frequency. But if the real suffering is in that silent internal world, the fear, the shame, the avoidance, then treatment has to be about so much more than just speaking smoothly. It has to be about helping the entire person, inside and out. And that's the real challenge, isn't it?